Well, for more, we're now joined by ActionSA Gauteng Chairperson Bongani Baloyi. Mr. Baloyi, thanks very much indeed for joining us. Welcome.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me on your show.
So what happened? When we spoke last, it seemed like a done deal. You had a solid coalition agreement in play, and it should have gone to book. What went wrong?
Look, in the village, they say you will see Shkwembusha Mahono. And that's exactly what we saw today as the coalition in Tshwane. We saw Shkwembusha Mahono. And unfortunately, there are a few councillors who decided to go rogue and vote with the Dr Makwarela candidate and elect him as the executive mayor of the city of Tshwane. And we're quite disappointed with the outcome, but it's also an outcome of a democratic process. So we do congratulate him on his what would be a short-lived victory, because the coalition will definitely regroup in this stage and determine the best way forward.
Did you have any indications that there might be some people who will go rogue, or was this just a fear?
Look, for us, this caught us by complete surprise. I mean, a secret ballot is a normal process that we normally go through, and in various instances, we were able to elect our mayors through a secret ballot, but in this instance, something went wrong, where you had about 7 councillors from the current coalition group who opted to vote for this candidate as opposed to our own candidate.
It sounds as if it's possible that some ActionSA members may have gone rogue as well in this vote.
Look, the coalition consists of a number of parties: the IFP, ACDP, Freedom Front, DA, and also ActionSA. And from that pool of coalition, it could have been anybody. And unfortunately, because this was a secret vote, we are unable to determine conclusively who voted in this mechanism.
When we last spoke, we talked about how your agreement could stand as a template of how coalitions could work going forward, that you sat down, you agreed on certain principles, and that you were all going to move forward that way. Now that this has seemingly collapsed, it doesn't give us much hope as citizens watching coalitions. What are your thoughts going forward then when you think about coalitions?
Look, it's unfortunate. Coalitions are going to be a fact for life, for reality for us in the foreseeable future, because we believe that there's no one political party that will be able to get more than 51% and govern outright. So we need to build in the mechanisms to ensure that we can protect a stable government and ensure that people can exercise their democratic right. And unfortunately, it's your democratic right when you go and vote under conditions of a secret ballot. And that's what happened. So the problem happened between when individuals walked into that booth and where they put their eggs, whether there was prior engagements outside of this with other political parties, or whether there was coercion, or whether there was some inducement. We haven't got a clue at this stage. So I really think, in fact, the one good thing about this entire thing is the fact that in South Africa, there could be a smooth changeover of power from one block to the next block without any blood spilling. That's the one good thing we can take away from this, which bears testament about the quality and democracy and the maturity of South African politics. But however, for a coalition which has agreed and has a particular agreement document signed by all members, where it must go in effect, those agreement is unable to do so, it doesn't bode well. And I really think this coalition will need to just look internally amongst their own individual members to try and find the rogue elements.
So where does that leave you with COPE? Because they were part of this coalition. Will you work with COPE if the mayor brings you in?
Look, I don't think we'll be able to do so. But at this stage, we've not fully consulted on that. COPE is not a member of the coalition. And if they were to approach us, I do not think that we'll be able to work with them. But I'm sure with the Senate meeting, a decision contrary to this might be made. I am not certain, but I can say at this stage, I don't see that happening.
Is there anything you could have done differently? Or were you confident that you had the backing and you had the right conversations before?
Look, we're confident that we had the coalition was intact, we had the right numbers, and we'll be able to proceed and elect an executive mayor from the coalition. We did not anticipate that the conditions for a secret ballot would be harvested or create an environment where individuals could vote against what the coalition had intended initially. So I really think for us, we need to just go to the drawing board and rethink and apply our minds about how we got here and try and have an honest conversation amongst ourselves once parties have found the wrong elements internally so we can be able to proceed.
What should South Africans think when we have minority parties holding the most senior positions in our metros?
Look, this consequence is the fact that South Africans voted for all these parties there. And South Africans also did not vote for one party to have majority, which means that any party, whether they've got 2 seats, 100 seats, 4 seats, any party under the circumstance of coalitions has equal claim towards being the mayor. And we've seen in Johannesburg, we've seen in Tshwane, that becomes now a reality. So South Africans need to think clearly about whom they vote for. And those who don't vote must appreciate what happens when they don't vote, because those who go and vote for their behalf as well. And we have this situation. So this is an outcome of a democratic process which was given birth by residents and voters of South Africa. And this situation of a coalition makes it possible for people who have minimal votes to ascend and become the executive mayors of these metros who are not fairly represented or substantively represented in these municipalities, but as voters who have voted for them. And once they are there, they can make any deal that they want. And there's no law that provides whether there should be barriers of entry for any party below X amount of threshold. None of that exists. And outside of any legislation by national government to try and cushion the space and create a solid framework that creates a predictable environment, then all of these things things that initially we thought would be our worst nightmares become our lived reality now.
Should we be concerned about the stability of our metros in Gauteng? Because it seems that we're playing musical chairs consistently now, and that can't be good for us ordinary citizens begging for service delivery. Look,
citizens should absolutely be concerned about the stability of these metros. If these metros do not have stability, it means they can't plan long term, that these institutions cannot forecast, can plan properly and implement, and therefore improvement of basic service delivery will forever become a thing in the distant memory. There will come a Mayor Bongani today, tomorrow you'll have a Jacob Zuma, the following day you'll have an Adama Fugate. So things will keep chopping and changing to the detriment of residents. I may not have the perfect answer for you, but I can tell you I'm equally concerned of what is happening now and potentially what 2024 might look like. Imagine these contradictions with political parties at a national level, and it must resolve issues around the defense force, issues around national treasury, issues around SOEs, and issues around our foreign policy. I really think that we must use this period now to build the mechanisms that can protect and ensure that there's a stable government, irrespective of who is there, because outside of these political parties, we are all South Africans, and at our hearts of hearts, we must ensure that the most important thing for us is to ensure that the patriotic spirit, where we put South Africa first ahead of cheap political point scoring, becomes a dominant currency. I don't think we are there now, but I think it's something for us to aspire to.
Do you think that there's a realignment of South African politics? I mean, it looks as if unlikely bedfellows are finding their way to each other when we see the EFF and the ANC dancing together in the council chamber today.
Absolutely. I certainly believe that we are well towards our realignment of South African politics. I think this is going to be a fundamental departure compared to the first alignment after the 1994 elections. This is really going to show the second transition of South African politics, which has enabled and given birth to small parties leading these significant metros and strange bedfellows as well. And I mean, at some stage, these political parties, whom none of them have majority, must constitute a government. Now, the question many residents must ask themselves, what is the glue that binds all of these people together? Is it a concern about delivery of services? Is it a concern about getting to the municipal fiscus and raiding that and doing all sorts of nefarious things? And I think these things need to be disclosed, but ultimately these things are able to be witnessed through the manifestation of service delivery or a lack of service delivery, but an increase in corruption, maladministration, and irregular and wasteful expenditure.
Mr. Baloyi, we're going to have to leave it there for this evening, but thanks very much indeed. Always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.